Okay, so Shudder has a new horror film coming to the platform. It is called Little Bites. It is written and directed by Spider One. The film is produced by Spider One and Krsy Fox. Executive produced by Ian Hope, Tyler Connolly, Chaz Bono, Wendy Berry, and Cher. Roy Mayorga took care of the music. Andy Patch is on cinematography. Krsy Fox, she also edits the piece. Right, hair, makeup, all of that jazz. We have Alexandra Baylis, Kenneth Calhoun, Paige Kayla Miller, and Ashley Stansbury. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, that's it on all of that front. The cast. Okay, so Mindy Vogel is played by Krsy Fox. Her daughter Alice is played by Elizabeth Phoenix Caro. Her mother is played by Bonnie Arons. We then have got I guess there's Gail, played by Lidmacy LaRose. There is Sonia Whitfield, played by Barbara Crampton. Sonia's boss, Bert Holzman, played by Mark Kelly. There's Eleanor, played by Heather Langenkamp. We have got Paul, played by Chaz Bono. There's Jack, played by Christopher Alvarenga. Doug, played by James A. Janessy. Talia, played by Chelsea Rebecca. Penny, played by Ellie Riot Fox. And Aguiar, played by Jon Sklaroff. Right, the gist of the film is this. Trapped in the living nightmare of motherhood, Mindy, a single mother harbouring a horrible secret, has willingly cut herself off from her unsuspecting precious daughter Alice. After all, the girl must never know what's been going on behind her back. But as Mindy's unimaginable problem gets the best of her, fear and abuse slowly drain her life away. And the thing in the basement is always hungry. No matter what, its feeble human host must keep feeding it, or else. With one delicious little bite separating life from death, with Alice realizing the extent of Mummy's sacrifice. Will Alice realize the extent of Mummy's sacrifice? So yes, that's the film, right? And yeah, I didn't really know what to expect with this one, right? It starts off and we've got Mindy in bed, and then we just hear this bell ring, right? And it's like persistent. And Mindy just looks drained, right? Looks haggard, doesn't seem to want to get out of bed, doesn't want to seem, and it's difficult, it looks like, right? Doesn't want to answer this call, but seems like she has no choice. So we see her, go all the way down to the basement, and inside this room, right, there's this person, this thing, this monster, and we realize it's feeding on Mindy. right? It's hungry, and that's the bell. It's a dinner bell, you know. And yeah, we see this thing constantly wanting more, right? And Mindy tries to bargain with the thing, but no dice. No dice. You know, she's like, oh, but you promised to be gentle, right? And it's just like, oh, I'll try next. You know, it's all of this kind of thing. We learned that Mindy's husband died. And so you're wondering, what is the extent of this? Right? What exactly is going on? Right? She sent her daughter away. Sent her daughter away because she didn't want her to witness any of this stuff. Right? And I believe her daughter Alice has been away for 3 weeks. So, yeah, it's intriguing. It's intriguing to the extent of what you perceive this to be, right? It's like Alice, when Mindy goes out, she's covering up, right? She bumps into someone, you know, another parent in the supermarket, and she doesn't really want to interact, you know? She's really trying to cut off all contact with the outside world if she can. We have her occasionally, you know, having to speak with her mother on the phone. And, you know, they're not the best conversations, right? The mum is just like, oh, why am I looking after your daughter? You should be a better mother. You should be looking after your kid. Which is all fair, right? But yeah, not maybe some of the best approaches to things. Now, I think as the film goes on, you get a feeling that the monster is a metaphor, right? An allegory, as it were, to grief, right? To worry, to anxiety, you know, and the fact that these things gnaw at you. You know what I mean? It's just like other things that might wipe you out straight away, but then this thing just gnaws at you. And it's there, depression, right? You can't shake it. Which you think, okay, yeah, I mean, that can work, right? But then also, when you think about it, right, a lot of people, you know, talk about how their parents' issues bled into their life. Right? Like, oh, my parents were alcoholics, and that created an unhealthy relationship with drink for me. Right? My parents were drug users, boom, boom, boom. Right? My parents were violent. Right? Just any of these things, you know, my parents were depressed. Right? They didn't give me the attention because of this, and right, so you see all of these things and you'd be like, yes, that makes sense, right? Those things can get passed down to the child. So all of this, you'd be like, yes, okay, interesting. But while it's an interesting concept, I feel, and maybe that's not what this is, but that's what, I don't know, you kind of have to extrapolate from what you see, because otherwise you're a little bit perplexed, right? And if that is the case, it's a little bit clunky, you know? Is you feel, because we do see the monster, and I feel it would have been more impactful to not really see anything here, right? Or at least leave a reveal to the very end, just the shape in the shadows, just the voice. That's more ominous. Ominous. Whatever, you know what I'm saying. Right? It's more that, you know? And then, like, we see the marks, all the bites on Mindy. Again, I think there's a ways of doing that which could have been more interesting, right? Like, if she's looking at herself and sees the marks, but maybe we as viewers don't see them in the mirror, right? I think that then indicates that they're mental scars. You know what I mean? I just think there's these ways that could have been so interesting. A way to play with this idea, this concept. Like, because most of the time, right, Mindy's mum and her daughter are just on the end of the phone. We do see them towards the very end of the film, and again, like, the way this is resolved, you do feel it would have made more sense to, maybe approach it in another way, right? It's also, it's the stuff with the Child Protection Agency, right? We have that. We have the situation with, Paul, right? Some of these things don't quite add up, right? Don't quite make any sort of sense, right? You do wonder why the fuck Paul's coming back to the yard, right? That doesn't really make any sort of sense. And when you think about, child protection and all of that, you do scratch your head at, just the resolution of this. So, Little Bites as an idea is intriguing. It just feels like the execution doesn't quite mesh up with the idea. I did think, right, as atmospherically, right, it does, especially at the first like 3/4 of the film are very dark, very brooding. Krsy Fox, you can see the forlongness in her, right? The body language, it looks like someone weighed down. So she did a very good job. I think when she bumps into I think it's Gail in the shops, right? Gail does come across as that, parent who's like, oh, my daughter is so good and blah, blah, blah. But then what's wrong with you? Right? It did feel like that person. So there is some decent performances here for sure. It's just, at times, the dialogue doesn't quite work, right? It doesn't feel natural. It feels like it's trying to force a square into a circle, right? To get the viewer to a certain point, which is a shame. I think we get some interesting camera angles and all of this, which work, right? The sound, the bells, the knocks, all of that work. Towards the end of the film, it gets all flashy, and it's like you're trying too much, you're trying too hard, but it's not needed, right? That's not where you kind of feel the film is working at its best. So there are elements here that do work, that do intrigue, but it's like it fizzles out, right? It's like that firework that goes up and it looks like it's building, right? It looks like we see some small flashes, it's slightly bigger, and you're thinking, oh, it's about to explode. We're gonna see something spectacular, and then it just whimpers out. And you're like, oh. And that does feel like little bites. Unfortunately. You know what I mean? That's what it just feels like this film has come to, which is a shame. You know, it is a real shame because, there is potential here. It just doesn't live up to it. Right, I guess, what could it be? I mean, if you like Wolfman, I think you might like Little Bites, like, I mean, when you think of how Nosferatu was so deft in the way it brought the monster and the fear and the anxiety and the tension, right? That's a film that really knew how to do it, right? And Little Bites doesn't quite get you there. If you like Listen Carefully, I think you might like Little Bites, right? So I think, those kind of, take you to a similar place. Thou Shalt Kill, right? Thou Shalt Kill, Listen Carefully. And those things, Wolfman, what was that film? Do You See Me? Right? All of those films, if you enjoy those, then I think you will enjoy Little Bites. It's dropping on Shudder on Friday the 21st. So if it sounds like it could be a film for you, people, you know what I mean? Get your knife and fork and get ready for some Little Bites.